The goods from the wood.
Hot damn!
I just was thinking, like, what good could I use from history on a podcast like this? And I wanted to tell you guys a story about the stupidest invention ever. And basically, this guy, Hunley, he was on the Confederate side. He invented a submarine. And here's how it worked. It was just a tube that opened on one end. And down the middle of it ran a crankshaft. And along the crankshaft would sit like 7 people. And it had a propeller on the back.
Yeah.
One dude could see. And he would be like, go forward. And all the people would crank the crankshaft, right? And then he would go backwards, and then they would crank it the other way, and it would go backwards.
Viking submarine, in a way.
So it's almost like the pedal boats in Echo Park, essentially.
The swan boats. It's the swan
See an
boats.
army of swan boats coming at you.
That's how you. That was one of his biggest flaws, but it had a swan head that came up above the water, so you could see it coming.
That was the periscope.
Yeah, I mean, you felt joy when you saw it coming, but you still knew it was coming. You know,
Psychological warfare.
you don't want your enemies to feel like they're at Disneyland right before they die. You want them to know they're going to die.
Yeah, that only works if you're the penguin.
So the way it worked was it would be like, and it was tiny, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be these people cramped in there, and when it went underwater, you couldn't see. So there were candles in there.
And this was made out of wood?
Wait,
no,
were there?
it was made out of wood.
It was made out of metal.
No, it was made out of metal. It was made out of metal for sure. The wooden submarine. Say no more. That's what's terrible.
Were they candles like wax candles, or were they like oil lamps or something?
I don't know, man.
That's yeah. But it's fire
Oil
lit.
lamps would be
But it's
fucking terrifying in an enclosed space.
Well, I mean, shit. I know the Monitor and the Merrimack both had like coal burning engines and stuff. So below decks was just a smoky underwater nightmare.
Like the
But what if it ran on weed?
Man, what if it ran on weed, man? It would be full of cookies.
Wouldn't be any war, man. They'd just be like, "What are we doing?" You know, they'd stop shooting and ramming each other and go home.
We would have stopped the fucking Confederacy, man. They'd be like, let's all be friends.
God, I hate that shit so much. It's like my least favorite thing ever that hippies say is like, if everyone could just do mind expanding drugs, it would change the world. I'm like, no, man, mediocre people have mediocre thoughts, even on drugs. So you need a fucking education. That's what you need, not ayahuasca.
So this submarine, here's the way it would work. You'd get into it, and it would float, and then you would pump the air out of it and water in, and then its buoyancy would change, so it would go underwater. And then when you got through doing your submarine things, you would pump all the water out of it, and you'd pump the air back in.
Yeah.
The problem is that part was theoretical because it never actually happened.
Yeah.
So they would pump the water in, and it would go underwater. And the first time they go out to test it, everyone's kind of standing around, and people get in it, in this metal death tube, like they seal the end, they put it in there, and it goes underwater. And they're like, fuck yeah, it's working. And then they're like, man, they've been under there a real long time.
Jeez.
Like, this thing either really works well or it doesn't work at all. And then finally they were like, everybody's probably dead. And so they went to the bottom and they drug it back up.
Yeah.
I think there was like 7 people in it, and all but 2 died. Right?
Yeah.
And so they got him out of this metal death tube. But you know, Hunley was the guy who invented it. He was like, no, it wasn't the submarine's fault. The guy probably just didn't know how to use it. And so he was like, who wants to go in it the second time?
Jesus
And
Christ.
people were like, nobody did. And so,
why?
Well, I don't know, man. It was just like, so Hunley tells everybody, hey guys, if it wasn't safe, would I go in it? And so Hunley goes in the Hunley, and the second...
You got to believe in your product.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't believe in your product, who will?
Exactly.
He's the Ron Popeil of bad ideas.
He's the Vince Offer of.
This would be a great infomercial, by the way.
Hunley here with
I'm not only the inventor, I'm also what he is, he's also the next round of people that died in it. Hunley,
Yeah, of course.
then died in the Hunley. It's basically named after the guy who died in it. This time, everybody died. And
He
were
built
like,
his own coffin in a way.
He basically built his own coffin, but then they shook him out of it, right? Every time they bring it up, they shake it back out. So this time, everyone died. So who's
It's
the
getting
third?
worse. It's
Yeah,
getting worse.
And it's only going to get worse. It gets a little bit better, but then it gets worse again, all right? Because they finally, the third time, they take it, send it back out. And at this point, I don't know, who the fuck are the third crew that goes in this thing?
Yeah.
Right, they go to somebody and they're like, congratulations, like, we want you to test this out.
Aren't they like pressing? At this point, you got to like they're making them. I'm sure, right? Nobody's like volunteering.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, we don't know much about the third crew, except for like they were probably hanging out and somebody came to them and they were like, "Hey, man, you guys are going to test this? You guys are the top 5 people in our Confederate experimental crew." And they're like, "Weren't we the 15th through 20th recently?" And they're like, "Yeah, but don't worry about
But they
why you're
probably
not
had
anymore."
some sort of like.
They probably tried to make him feel special, like Steve Zissou did for Willem Dafoe's character, where he was just like,
Yeah.
he's like, "Why am I always on B team?" It's like, you're the head of B team. you're my number
I'd
2
imagine
guy.
that they would come up with some sort of gimmicks to be like, no, it's safe. We got these pig bladders full of air that you can suck on, and we got a bunch of leeches down here.
They're like, yeah, those two
So
guys
you'll
over
be
there are
fine.
still shaking like months later, and they're mad about it. But you know what? They probably aren't honest anyway. You know, it's like
Sure, the failing Richmond Times is calling this a death trap,
Here, put on these fish suits.
but we don't believe the fake news around here.
Put on these frog suits. They work for Mario.
they're like, all right, guys, we're gonna have a who can hold your breath the longest competition. Oh, you guys won it. Put 7 more people in there. All right, and this time they send it out, and this is what's amazing. It makes it. It makes it out. It doesn't sink right away. And they're along that crankshaft, man. They crank it on out to the ocean. And they find this ship called the USS Housatonic. And they blow it up. Right?
It worked?
I'll let you decide.
I mean, they blew it up.
They blew it up.
Part 1 worked.
Right. And then they celebrated by becoming the 3rd crew to die because they immediately sunk to the bottom. Now, here's the best part. Nobody ever knew why it sunk. They found it like 15 years ago, and they drug it back up. You can go see it. Don't get in it.
There was a movie about it, I think. On
Was there a
TNT
movie about
or
it?
something like
Wow.
that? Yeah.
This is not a happy ending.
Yeah.
Because here's how it sunk ships, all right? And this is fucking great. This is like they bought this from the Acme store.
Yeah.
At the front of the submarine, it had a long pole, and at the end of the pole, it had a bomb. This is real, with a barb on it, right?
Yeah.
So when the dude who could see would see a boat, he'd be like, "Go fast!" And all the people would crank as fast as they can, and you run into it, and then you stick the barb. And then once he thought you hit it and stuck in there, he'd be like, "No, go
Backwards,
and it would
backwards.
pull the fuse,
Yeah.
boom, and blow up the bomb. And that's how it worked.
Right, yeah.
Now, nobody knew how it sunk. And just like last year, I think it was, people went in and built basically a model of it. And what they figured out...
Did they get in it?
No, not. Yeah, there's like 38 people dead. It's amazing.
It's still killing people.
It's still...
They're still trying to figure it out.
We're going to get this.
The South's going to rise again, damn it.
Yeah, we're going to get
Gotta get this to work.
Confederate submarine working.
You've made it through Mississippi SEAL School.
Dude, so it turns out that nobody had like...
Taught by Bill Dance.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, damn it.
Oh, damn it.
The Hunley sunk again.
Curses.
Your grandma's going to be so mad at us.
My balls hat is now under the water. It's my new balls hat.
It turns out they didn't do any measurements on the bomb, and they were inside of a metal tube under the
Yeah.
water. And when the bomb exploded, it basically
blew
liquefied
them
the
up.
insides of everyone in there.
Oh, my God.
Like through like a
Like a
Like the
shockwave.
shockwave, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
the water
The
went through
concussion of it, like, yeah.
And my students always ask me, they're like, when they found the submarine with the people in there, and I'm always like, yeah, they were pissed. It had been 150 years.
Right,
Like,
right.
where you guys didn't look for us. But the reality is, they found these people, and when they found their remains, they were sitting in the position that they had been in when they were manning
Yeah,
the
of course.
crankshaft.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, like big eyes.
Yeah, yeah. Redneck Pompeii.
if they
It wasn't redneck, but yeah, they were like they didn't even seem to panic. They just went down, and it was because their insides were basically liquid.
Yeah, it's because a giant bomb killed them instantly.
well when they've been like pretty well preserved too, right?
Yeah, I think they were pretty well preserved,
Yeah.
and like nobody
Yeah.
knows
You
exactly
can
who they
still
are.
see their Marshall Tucker Band T-shirts. I mean, as a person that roots for the Union and this sort of thing, you know, it's a good story at the end, except for
Yeah.
the boat, the American boat being blown up. You know? At least they did the bomb thing and not the turtle thing, which I think is like the turtle.
Oh, the Revolutionary War.
yeah, where
One man
it
sub.
has like a hand drill.
Yeah,
its weapon
he
is the
tried to
hand
drill. It looks like a whiskey barrel that somebody turned a backyard tinkerer.
Yeah.
Was like, I got fucking ideas, guys.
And the way
Yeah,
it sunk
it's
ships
made
was
of-
people were like,
it's
look, a
made of-
barrel of whiskey, and the guy popped out and punched him in the nose.
just started beating him up.
And it's made, it's
Gotcha.
made out
The Trojan whiskey barrel.
It's made.
Gotcha.
It looks like it's lacquered wood.
Yep.
And probably filled in with pitch.
Yep.
And it's like the guy pedals, and it has a little propeller on it, and then the weapon is that it's a little hand drill that basically you would pull up to the side of a boat and be like, dunk.
Yeah. It
Drill
only
into the
works
side.
if this is a boat that doesn't have access to some sort of cloth that they can just plug the hole with very simply. Yeah.
Yeah, basically the
Just have one
defense-
that the British like soldiers who just sticks his finger.
Right,
in
yeah, yeah.
the rest of the
Yeah,
trip.
All right,
the only
boys,
defense,
we have to find a ship without a little Dutch boy in
Yeah, I
it.
was about to say the only defense is a little Dutch boy.
I'm tired. Kevin, keep your fucking finger in there. But I'm tired. Yeah, Swear to God, if you don't keep your finger in there,
My hands are pruning.
my hands are pruning. If you
Vendor fry. Stop complaining.
Yeah, no, this is the Hunley's stupid, but this was,
I'm just imagining John Jay just yelling at some little Dutch kid. Keep your thumb in.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
They did take it underwater and attacked a boat.
no, they did it. I remember
Yeah.
they tried to drill the boat and the boat didn't sink because that's a fucking, why would it?
I love the line on the Wikipedia that you pulled up. One of the central concerns for Bushnell as he planned and constructed the turtle was funding.
Ben Franklin is like, this
logistics.
seems dumb. We don't want to pay for this.
Well, yeah, all the founding fathers were, they grew hemp, so they probably like smoked weed and stuff.
Oh, they were
they were
smoking,
like,
dude.
yeah,
They're probably,
Well,
we
that
want to harsh
and,
somebody's buzz by putting a hole in their boat, man.
George Washington.
That
was
and this
like,
is also the time like where water would go bad, so they would just like put liquor in their water. So everybody's just like, man, I'm so fucking hydrated. I'm hydrated as shit.
They all got Argo poisoning, and
Yeah.
they're just like tripping.
I've been drinking like spoiled water full of rum all
going
day.
Salem, dude. I'm going Salem. But no, so
This is amazing. My students just got a new slide in their lecture on the American Revolution. All right.
so they.
The turtle?
So I think they should make a turtle movie.
you might get a rep around campus as like the submarine guy. Yeah. He's going to talk about weird experimental subs.
So check
a
this out.
lot.
I have an idea for the turtle movie. All right, so check this out. They do, and we can start with the star can be like some like karate guy, like a Steven Seagal or like a Chuck Norris or something like that. And he goes down in the turtle and he drills the hole and gets stuck. So he has to deal with the fact he's like, oh man, I'm stuck in this little. So there's a moment where he's dealing with claustrophobia. Will I survive? And then the eagle, the boat that he's attacking, pulls into port. And everybody's like, "What's this weird whiskey barrel in here? Let's open it up." Like it's the
Yeah,
Trojan
yeah.
whiskey barrel.
Yeah.
They open it up, and your action star
Jean-Claude, dude.
Yeah, Jean-Claude pops
Yeah.
out and proceeds to kicking some ass.
He could be a renegade Hessian.
And then he, instead of like sinking the boat, he just like kicks everyone on the boat's butt,
Yeah.
and thus wins the battle. And he can be Captain von Steubing.
and then here's the catch. It
Yeah.
turns out that was Iron Man's fourth great grandfather, Tony Stark's fourth great grandfather. Now is an Avengers prequel.
Nathaniel Stark.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think.
When you first
So they can
said,
explain the. But then again, in Bloodsport, he had a Belgian accent, but he was like Frank Dukes.
The very
like,
American.
he could like kick people's
Canadian.
heads off, and that's how you get the headless horseman is because he kicks some dude's head
Oh,
off.
there we go.
That's all.
I just wanted to read this because this is the attack on the British ship that they tried to attack with this thing was called the Eagle, and this is fucking hilarious. Just before midnight at 11 p.m. on September 6, 1776, Sergeant Ezra Lee piloted the submersible towards Admiral Richard Howe's flagship Eagle, then moored off of Governor's Island in New York Harbor. On that night, Lee maneuvered the small craft out to the anchorage. It took 2 hours to reach his destination because he was hand manipulating the crankshaft the entire way. So he's literally just pedaling and going like this
In the ocean water, which sounds hard.
in New York
as
fucking
fuck.
harbor, which is that the terminus of two rivers and the ocean. Adding to his difficulties was a fairly strong current and the darkness creeping overhead, which made visibility difficult.
That sounds like a bigger problem than funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main problem with this is it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, the plan failed. Lee began his mission with only 20 minutes of air, not to mention the complications of operating the craft. The darkness, the speed of the currents, and adding to the complexity is all combined to thwart Lee's plans. Once he surfaced, Lee lit the fuse on the explosive and tried multiple times to stab the device into the underside of the ship. So they were trying to do what the Hunley was trying to do. They were trying to drill a hole.
Maneuver, huh?
I was wrong. I thought they were just drilling a hole, but he was trying to put a bomb in there, and apparently it just didn't go off. But yeah, it was only submersible for 20 minutes, so he had to paddle essentially the dumbest craft ever on the surface.
And he's doing
Come up for
physical. Yeah, he's doing physical.
Yeah, it's
Activity, so-
unbelievable physical exertion for 2 hours, only to then have to go down with time ticking, drill underneath, slip a bomb inside, and then make it back. And yeah, it didn't actually blow up. But I think he did drill the hole.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what he told people. He was like, I drilled the hole, but it didn't. Here's another great fact about the American Revolution. Richard Howe, the guy on the boat.
Yeah.
You know what his nickname was? It was Black Dick.
Is that right?
That was his nickname.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Yes, and that's pretty amazing.
Black-
If you don't believe me that his nickname was Black Dick,
It was named
go,
after-
You
Was
go
it
Google it. Go
Did he
Google
get
it.
like an especially bad case of VD and it was like actively rotting off?
Black Dick just sounds like the county in England where he was from. Like All those English counties have weird sexual weird names like that.
That'd be great if they were like, he's like, I drilled a hole, stuck the bomb in there, but would you believe the water kept putting out the fuse? Didn't really think this through, you guys.
We all live in a yeller submarine, a yeller submarine.